Good afternoon. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email. My guest today, I'd have to say a legendary figure in email, Andrew Kordek, now of iPost, formerly of any number of other companies related to email. Andrew, nice to talk to you again.
Mr. Dunn, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I don't know if I would call legendary status. I'm a student of this craft. I learn new stuff every day, but thank you for that long introduction.
Well, actually, one of your LinkedIn fan base called you a force of nature.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hey, first orient people, iPost. I mean, I know iPost a bit, you know iPost a lot, but some of the folks listening or watching may not be familiar with iPost.
Yeah. So I joined iPost in August of 2020. I actually sold and wanted to retire from this industry back in 2020 when I was with Trendline. But Cameron Kane approached me. I'd met Cameron, the CEO, years prior. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so they gave me a demo. And I've seen all of the different ESPs out there. I know a lot of them, and I was amazingly impressed for somebody that I didn't know too much about, right? And so, one of the reasons I came here was about the platform in itself, right? Relational data, the ability to do just about any one of the tier ones and what they do, all the well-known ESPs out there. And we've now sort of put our niche in, right? We feel as if we can really own the market around associations and franchise and casinos and publishing, things of that nature, because of the way we do sub-clients. I always say we can do everything a lot of the big boys and girls can do. It's just that nobody knows a lot about us, but once they see the power of the platform, I in fact showed my colleague, a colleague of mine, I'm like, take a look, just play around with it. So this is pretty powerful stuff. So iPost is ESP, right? Like 400 other ESPs out there. And I think we do a fantastic job, just like a lot of the ESPs do. Fantastic jobs. I think the difference is experience and just the niche that we play in.
Well, and I'm going to tag onto the comment. Inside Baseball, our company, Campaign Genius, works with has a good fortune to work with iPost. So I know the platform may be better than a lot of people. Much more current in terms of architecture and thinking, and that to me is a big deal. Wicked fast. That's a big deal as well. Like, seriously.
It's surprising, right? And that's why I always say, you know what? And this is sort of our new mantra. We don't want 3,000 customers. We don't want 23,000 customers. We're looking for about 350. We've got about 160 right now that can really utilize the platform, in and itself. And I think that's what makes a difference, because once you sort of reach that 300, there's a souffle, right? That happens, right? We have an account manager for everybody. We have the ability to have quick turns from a support-based issue. I think the issue too is that everybody that works here has got at least 10 years of experience in digital and or email marketing.
Wow.
So we're not dealing with somebody that's never pushed buttons or worked client side. We understand it, and it's a two-way street. We look at it that people come to us and assess our system. We want to assess them too. We have a requirement for certain types of customers, right? That they come to us just like they have requirements for us. And so it has to be the true partnership. And the term partnership is like love. Everyone uses it, but we really want to be partners with somebody and really work with their program. I think that's one of the big reasons why I came here. And I told these guys, I'm like, this is my last hurrah, right? Like, this is it, right? I love email, and I love what these guys do. And I'm honored to represent.
Wow. Nice. I'm curious because the journey for you, I mean, it included founding one of the bigger agencies in email marketing, Trendline, and to jump from Trendline when you left there. I think you used the word retired. I'm not sure you're allowed, but you jumped from Trendline after X span of months to vendor side, to the evil vendor side. How has that been different than you expected? Better, worse? Like,
much different.
Yeah,
I've learned stuff from the vendor side, and I took for granted on the agency and even on the client side, right? So remember, I used to help run email. It's here's Kmart, Groupon, and Quest Software. So I've been agency side and running Trendline, client side, that those companies, and I took for granted a lot what some of these vendors do, right?
Mm.
Like, how hard could it be to partition a new IP, right? That type of stuff. And all the back end stuff that goes along with running a really well run email service provider. So there's been a pretty good learning curve. Am I an expert at it? No, no, not at all. But at least I have the ability now to explain it
Yeah.
to a client to say, it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is, right? I mean, you know it, right? I mean, email's not easy. It takes practice and, whatever. But yeah, huge learning curve.
Huge learning curve.
Good way.
Well, and one of the things that I've learned as I've started to learn the email space for the second or third time, I don't know. There are, as you said, a lot of companies. There are hundreds of companies who say they're an ESP or an email platform of some sort, and then
Mhm.
probably tens of thousands that also send email on top of that. And one, it's not easy to do. Two, it's not easy to get noticed in a space that's that crowded. It's one of the challenges for, let's be fair, a smaller, a newer vendor.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if it's the
Yep.
best thing since sliced cheese. It's
Right.
actually hard to get above the noise in a space that's been around for 20 years and still has hundreds of participants in the ring.
Right. Absolutely. And I think I always looked at, and I used to say this, even when I was agency and client side, every ESP sucks. They do. They suck at many different things, right?
Yeah.
You just need to find out which one sucks the least for
Yeah.
your business.
Yeah.
Can you grow with them? Are there things, that they do that maybe some other people don't do as easily, right? I mean, let's be honest. Everybody in the world, every ESP, sender of email is going to say the great buzzwords, right? We're cutting edge, or we're fast, or we've got AI, or whatever. Nobody can exist without that today, right? With all the buzzwords that everybody puts in. But when rubber hits the road,
Mhm.
right? When you've got people standing across from you, whether on a Zoom or whatever, and they understand the business, that to me is a differentiator, right? If you're one of 3,000 other people that are trying to get help with deliverability, so to speak,
Yeah.
that's the differentiator. And that's where I think smaller ESPs with really advanced capabilities can really succeed, because they can be the ankle biters and still do extremely well. And I make no bones about it, right? Like, every ESP still does suck. I mean, they do. Even there's certain parts of iPost that sucks. The thing is that we're not for everybody, and not everybody is for us. You just need to kind of figure out, how well can I push this system, and do I have the right people behind it?
Right. Right. Well, you have learned a lot.
Right.
There's nothing left to learn, right?
There's so much left for it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And it's not like it's a static field, even though nominally it's email hasn't changed that much. Hang on a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally disagree that emails stay the
Yeah.
stands. There's tons of stuff that's happening.
Well, even if there weren't, we agree
Mhm.
that things are changing.
Yeah.
That the people reading the message in the other end of that are living through an astonishing and a wrenching period of change, and how they're going to interact, receive, etc. Like that's going to
Mhm.
alter what worked last year, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. It's not going to be read the same way anymore.
I always tell everybody that, email, what it was 5, 10 years ago, serves the purpose. The question is has, and everyone talks about scaling or changing their business or their messaging or their site or how they interact with customers. The real question is, what's the innovation that's happening on the email side? Not just innovation outside of third party platforms, but what's the innovation that's happening inside? How are you changing for those times? Are you still doing the same thing you were doing 2 years ago? And if it's still working, great. But guess what? It's still working, but that doesn't mean that you can't improve upon it. And so I always say, don't get stuck in the ways of what you've always done. Always be pushing to learn new things, whether you're trying stuff for the first time where you're changing the way the email program or the email gets out the door. I call it eliminating the distractions, right? And focusing on the core. And that's a hard thing to do because in large scale organizations and even the most nimble ones, they're like, well, gosh, I've always been told I need to do X, right? Or this or that. And it's not about the establishment that we've all had this discussion for years in this industry about best practices. It's not the establishment and following of best practices. It's the establishment of best practices for you guys, right? And it ultimately boils down to how do you, meaning you, the organization, want to do your email program? That's what it boils down to. How do you want to do your email program? Not like your competitors.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah. I'm curious. So we're going to go off topic, of course.
Yeah.
I noted about 3 weeks ago, 3, 4 weeks ago, and I was really surprised to see that a large enterprise ESP, email service provider, had bought a newsletter company. And I was like, that's fascinating. Why did they do that? I mean, I've got my conjectures about why, but it was fascinating to me that happened. Any reactions?
It's all about customers and data, right? What do they have? They must have something on them from a data perspective, right? In order to target new services and products. It's a product play. What do they look to hope to gain from that? What did Intuit have to gain from the purchase of MailChimp, right? Lots of stuff. It's a forward-looking vision. The question is when you gamble and buy a company that's sort of outside your wheelhouse, you have to make sure that you keep the management in place at the purchased organization so that they can integrate with whatever products or however you want to do your integration or do your purchase out 3-4 years, because it's going to take some time to do that. So there's got to be some sort of methodology behind it.
Yeah.
Like just that, or like it. The question is can they execute on it the right way without sort of fumbling the ball?
That historically, traditionally, super challenging, probably more unsuccessful than successful to get what everyone wanted out of an acquisition. One of the things that had my ears perk up about that particular lateral acquisition was the content, the potential content play there, because there's a few newsletters, email newsletters that I subscribe to, read regularly. We've seen the rise of Substack et al., like yet another reinvention on email as a channel. I thought, no, if I actually started getting stuff that interested me rather than sell, that'd be a different relationship, even if the org behind it was someone that I maybe bought stuff from.
Right.
Yeah.
It is going to interesting to see how that's going to play out, especially when they really integrate the two companies. What's the message going to come out as? What are they going to do as now? That's the fun stuff, though. And let's hope they're successful, right?
Yeah.
Let's absolutely hope they're successful, because I think success happens right when you're able to kind of deliver to your shareholders or your stock, or even your customers, that value is they're going to get better as a result of that. And I hope that their customers succeed.
Yeah.
That's ultimate.
Yeah. And otherwise, it's just musical chairs game, changing ESPs. And if you're doing the same thing, that's not necessary. If you keep doing the same thing just by changing platforms, you're not necessarily going to get different results.
Totally. You have to be humble doing it too. You have to be humble. You can't come out and start raising prices 60 days after that. I mean, we know it's coming, right? Because someone has to pay for something, right? But like, make it a positive spin.
Yeah. One of the things that perpetually that I like about the email space, but it also intrigues me, is that to a great extent, the monopolies from other spaces aren't really central players in the email space, in at least on the email marketing out the door side of things. I mean, Google, obvious footprint on the on the inbox. Apple, obvious footprint on the inbox as well, especially in the last 6 months. But on the the tool set side, not much of a presence.
I don't know. And what's really interesting is a lot of people look at the tool set side as a checkbox in some cases. We need to try X, we need to try Y, we need to try, but what they look at, right? And they see these different tool sets, or they see the influence of Apple has now on the inbox. How does that affect the tool set that I'm using? How do I know whether or not I'm getting my return on the investment? It's a crazy sort of circle, right? That everyone kind of gets through. And at that point, I might say, let's stop for just a second and let's take a step back and say, what are you using that you like most or feel like you're getting the highest ROI? And how does that influence not just your tool set, not just whether or not you get into the inbox and if it's a confirmed open or, all this kind of stuff that we've been talking about MPP. And what is it? What is it? What is it? And how does it affect the person on the other end, a subscriber in and itself?
Mm.
And we tend to lose sight of all that. And maybe call me a feel good type of guy, fluffy, like to have all of that. But it really is all about the subscriber, right? I mean, it truly is. And we tend to sometimes overlook that and view them as a segment or a number or, a high value person or a loyalty member.
Yeah.
And we need to look beyond it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm curious your reaction to this. I think one of the things changing email now is the increased privacy related pressures on primarily, I think, on other digital channels. Email is getting drug into the fight, but I don't
Mhm.
think is necessarily the poster child for privacy infringement. Yeah.
Yeah. Completely, right? And I used to run an email 101 course, and I used to kind of go over what can spam actually meant and why they put it out. And then you start talking about privacy and permissions. Now, my son, who's probably has a different opinion about privacy and permissions than I would, right? But what's interesting in the way I see privacy and permissions going is bring it on, right? I think it's a great thing because it's about time. For those of us who are based in the US, we really don't know how incredibly constrained, right, GDPR is and how well it protects the consumer. Whereas I gave a webcast or an in-person thing, and we said, in the US, we don't care about our privacy. That was several years ago. And now all this privacy stuff's coming down, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, I don't want this. That's creepy. Facebook does this or these guys do that or whatever. And now everyone's starting to realize, wow, it can get pretty intense. I hope that marketers today don't look at the privacy laws that are coming out or have come out or the ways that Apple are doing things as a hindrance. I view it as something that I think is extremely positive for an industry, as well as something that we've always adapted, right? As marketers, we just need to move on. And I, I said I did a blog post earlier this year about what are the trends for 2022. One of them was please stop talking about MPP, right? Like we talk about MPP ad nauseum. I've read so much, but we need to kind of move on from that, right? I get it, heard it. We just need to find new ways. And I think that's where we as marketers, I use the term echolalia. We as marketers have echolalia, especially email marketers. Like I'll talk about the same stuff over and over and grind it in the ground. Even 5 years ago, we were talking about stuff. And privacy is here, and we can't just keep grinding every. I love it. I think it's great, personally.
Well, I think the email space is actually, absent actors you don't want at the table, right?
Yeah,
Pretty darn well self-regulated from even from a privacy, respect to subscriber perspective. It's a very strong aspect of the culture in email I've found in the
mm,
last few years.
I think it's great because if you take part in the community, and what I mean by that, there's plenty of outlets to take part. You know that there's a lot of passionate people out there wanting to do the right thing. And again, that one bad apple can scour. But does anybody stand up at a meeting or whatever and say, I'm an email marketer, right? Because no one, there's not a lot of us that are like, I code emails or I'm a life cycle marketer or whatever, partly because of the sentiment that probably people have, right? Oh, you're that person that sends me 4 emails a day or sends me 5 emails a week. and it's the same stuff over and over again. So, but I do find that the communities that I participated in the last 15 or, almost 18 years now, they're extremely rewarding. There is an education and there are passionate people that want to do the right thing. And then there's old dogs like me. I'm not going to put you in that category. As an old dog, I'll put myself in that category. Right? That we're trying to shift with the the newer school marketers that are out there. I think it's great, personally.
Yeah, it's stimulating, if nothing else. It's nice to see. It's nice to see some rebalancing as social media, for example, which is just a broad label to hang on a lot of different channels. But as social media has stabilized, matured somewhat, it's not just flavor of the month. It's not going away, but it also doesn't solve all problems. Seems like there's a bit more of a mature, what's the right way to do the right thing for the customer, including what channel to do things on or not to do things on,
Mhm.
discussion. And email kind of kept its head down for a decade or so. Like, no, we're still actually bringing in home the bacon. Thank you very much. And and now it's like, oh, I guess you guys were bringing home the bacon. Yeah, we were doing that while everyone
Yeah.
was chasing the shiny toys.
I actually have a really great analogy. When someone asks me why I like email, why I love email, I said, do you watch American football? Everyone's like, well, yeah, I mean, I kind of have an understanding. I said, when was the last time you saw an offensive lineman win the Super Bowl MVP? Which is never. Email was the offensive line for the marketing department. Without it, without a strong offensive line, you can't do the sexy stuff. The quarterback can't pass to the wide. It's like, the whole 9 yards. And email's sort of like those ugly 375 guys that are moving everybody, right? They don't care about a lot of credit, right? You're never going to see them up on the stand or being interviewed as the MVP, but they just silently move along. And without a strong email program, nothing else can do. And everyone's like, okay, now I kind of get it. And I said, I love being the sort of sweaty guy that moves the pack, right? It's
Yeah.
good. We don't have to get a lot of fanfare. And if you subscribe to that, when we start talking about how social plays into all of this,
Mhm.
that's where a good playbook happens, right? That's where you need to make sure that everybody's moving in the same direction together, not separately in separate departments that sit across from one another or take part in quarterly meetings, but together they have to be coordinated in what they do. I also have an analogy for my European friends if I had to pull it, right? But that's okay, right? I don't know your audience too well, whether they're European or American.
It's like, and I'm nearly sports illiterate, so I'm not qualified to say this, but I've got to guess that most other countries look at American football and go, I have
Oh yeah, 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 yes, totally, right. And I watch European football. I watch rugby. I watch a lot of that sort of thing, and there is some very good similarities between it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
It's like very large men in armor. Okay,
I,
check.
I've got a question for you because I'm really curious about. You've been in this business for a long time and you've seen a lot of the transformation sort of happen. Is there any particular area that you're seeing that is causing you to kind of either hold your head or kind of go, oh man, this is awesome, right? This sort of fundamental shift. Is there anything in particular that you're seeing in the market?
Hmm. Turn the tables on me, you stinker.
Of course I had, I had to, I had to, right?
This is very half baked because
Okay.
I'm trying to bake it because I got to get up on stage and talk about it in a month or so
Yeah.
here. Um, Email continues to play a democratic, small d, democratic
Mhm.
role that I don't see. I don't see any other digital channel carrying to the same degree. And I think that's actually, I think it's important that there's still this sort of common ground. No one owns it, relatively level playing field that individuals, that companies, that governments, whatever, can sort of jump in on and use. And it makes me a little bit flip to go, ooh, we take that for granted, don't we?
Hmm.
We really take that for granted. And we've
Hmm.
gotten away with that, but the digital sphere writ large is changing constantly. We're starting to see
Hmm.
balkanization,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we're sitting here having this conversation, late April 2022. At
Hmm.
this point, Russia's got a separate internet. We thought we just had one for a while there. We haven't had just one for a while, but we are starting to see some splintering. So can we keep that common playing field intact? Should we be trying to take concrete action to make sure it stays intact? Because if we
Hmm.
don't, I'd worry that the wrong thing here, the wrong thing there, and we wake up and go, oh man, we can't do what anymore? I thought we could always do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's such a great point because I think that for as long as I've been in this business, I've sort of seen the engine just be put on autopilot, right?
Hmm.
And that's scary and it works. But we also have to think about to the industry in itself. There are not a lot of people, and I use the word a lot, and I'm basing this off of absolutely no data other than what I see
Yeah.
that stay in our industry. And I use the word ours email industry for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
There's probably quite a few people that I know of that have been around for a really long time. But I don't see as email, I think, is a stepping stone to sexier stuff in the marketing channels,
Yeah.
right? And so you
Yeah.
kind of cut your teeth on that and then you move on. And then there's this whole re education thing that sort of has to happen. And when I look at the Slack channels, I feel like we're having that same conversation. That's great. And because I think new people, new faces bring new blood into all of this. But I also think that there's a re-education process, right? Like, and that in itself, old dogs like me be like, gosh, shouldn't you already know this?
Yeah.
Like
Shouldn't.
to me, and I try to curb that back, right? But I try to learn from them and how they're operating
Mhm.
around life cycle or deliverability or whatever. And I think that's what I'm seeing the trend is that, there's this precipice that people get to in email, the pressure to get it done, out the door, produce revenue. And it's a lot of stress. And they'd rather just move on to something that's less tactical because they don't have time for the strategic and then move somewhere else.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And if it's a career ladder thing, as you said, and I strongly agree,
mhm,
stepping stone on and up or whatever you call it in marketing is a broader field perhaps, but not necessarily staying focused in email. I'm curious your reaction to this. It struck me the other day as I was grappling with some of this stuff that there's kind of a guild in a medieval sense. There's kind of a guild quality to the email space, right? Like
mhm,
young apprentices, old dogs, and it's not like you can pick up the book or go to a college course and say, "I want to learn how to do this well." Like,
right.
if you're lucky, you get to apprentice somewhere and start
Mhm,
learning the thing, and hopefully you stay in it. And I think we've got a problem of a lot of people churning out early, but
yep.
it still does have kind of a kind of a guild quality to me. Any
Yes.
reactions?
Well, so first of all, I've given a lot of lectures at colleges and universities from the undergrad to graduate level,
Mhm.
right? And I walk into a room and I start talking about email and I can kind of see the proverbial eye rolls. We had this module.
Right.
I
Right.
get it, right? It's all about life cycle and they kind of weave it into CRM and they kind of do, sort of, whatever. But when you get into the nitty gritties, like I said, moving to the vendor side, learning a lot, there's a lot of intricacies to do it well,
Yeah.
to do it right, and to consistently improve on it. And that's where I think somebody with 5, 10, 15 years of practical experience,
Mm.
right, walking in the door and explaining how things operate is a distinct advantage. I've read just about every email book written, right? And they're all fantastic. But what we have to understand and realize is that some of these people read this stuff and take it to heart like it's the only thing I should do, as opposed to wanting to learn more about what the world is and what their brand stands for. Like the best question I've ever asked anybody in this industry is, what does success look like in your email program? Tell me what it's like. Why should someone sign up? Answer me those questions in the way that you can insert it in your brand versus the standard marketing. Well, I want to sell you stuff, or I want to give you discounts, or I want to do that. I want to elevate the topic of email marketing to less tactical and more strategic about how we can forge the brand in a new way, because you have such a large audience and such a good way to do it in email. And so when I look at it, like you said, a guild, right? We have to nurture, we have to feel like the people that have been in this industry a while, it's a two-way apprenticeship, right? I need to learn what you're thinking versus what the way I'm thinking. And not to say that either one of us is right or wrong. We need to understand the goal of the brand. How do you want to do email, and what does success look like? And when those things align, then the program incrementally gets better. But it's not hey, we're going to have it done in a month, right? Let's move on and go forward. There's always something that gets in the way, because we live in this fast world that we feel we can turn messaging on its head with the right turn and we're all good. It's just not how it works. Right. And so I love this industry. I love the participation. I love what people do, but I also think that we sometimes, me included, go about it the wrong way. We need to take a step back before we do anything else and do something that's fun, or do something that is the bright, shiny object in order to improve our email program short term. Okay.
Right.
So,
There's
and it,
a lot of wisdom there. Right? A company that makes the investment to build the kind of sound, strategically focused email program that you described
yeah.
would have one heck of an engine for their business.
Well, I remember this was like 15, 20 years ago. And there were reporters interviewing the CEO of AT&T, and they were asking him a bunch of questions, and a young, probably reporter, smart ass, asked the question, and they said, "Have you ever called your customer service line?" He kind of looked down, I'm a CEO, right? And he's like, "Well, no, I haven't." And they said, "It's an absolute train wreck, right? Like it's you treat me like a bad customer, right? And I have to enter in through all these prompts." And the first thing I tell everybody is, when was the last time you signed up for your email program? What was the process? How much information did you have to get? Did you like it? Did you understand it? Do you know what you're going to get? Did you educate them? Like, it's great to say, do you want $20 off your first order? Or do you want to receive emails and then take them to some long, huge preference center, right? But you're asking them to marry you on the first date, right? It's like, there's so much that's involved right at the start. That's the first place I tell brands, or advise brands, advise them to say, start from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it starts with your sign process.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like that. It's like everyone working in email, jot this down. First thing you should do is sign your mother up for your email program, because that'll keep you acting considerately.
Or stand behind your mom and watch her
do it. Yeah.
and see if she gets it.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I used to say with the family task, right? Have somebody that's near and dear to you, right? Sign up. I watch my wife and watch people. I'm one of these guys that love, when I used to travel, I watch people interact on their phone. And I watched my wife one time interact with her email. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I'm just deleting everything." Well, why are you deleting it? Because I'm sick and tired of reading the same stuff, right? And so if you watch people interact, that's the best type of education that you can, right? Focus groups help a lot, right? If you can't tell somebody why they should sign up for your email program in a cohesive sentence of what they're going to get and educating them around it, you need to rethink what you're doing at the beginning to get that subscriber.
Yeah, and I agree, and I would extend that and say, and if in a week or a month or something, it's not clear to them why they shouldn't unsubscribe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Same problem sets. Like,
Right. Right.
oh,
My,
shut up.
I'm going to give him credit. My colleague, Alex, when we started talking about like re-engaging people or win back or whatever we want to call it in this industry, right? He said, I see too many programs that do the same thing to try to win you back. He goes, you can't wake up people the same way you put them to sleep. Right? And that quote sticks with me for the last like years that he said that.
That's awesome.
It's so true, right? And his one of his email addresses is Rick Van Winkle at. I won't give the actual email address, but it's so true. Just like you can't expect that, they don't know anything about you, right? When they sign up, it's a philosophical discussion. And I know some people will probably listen to this podcast and roll their eyes and go, this Kordek guy, it's so much different on the client side than it was when this guy was on it. And I'd say, well, time out. If you're looking to improve your program and you're looking for ways to improve it, it's not about creating hyper micro segmented whatever rights and, for creating tons of content for micro segments. It starts at the beginning and you have to take a step back. Especially if you are the marketer that's under the pressure to get the job done. And it's tough. It's a hard thing to do. I get it, folks. I really do.
Yeah, it is. It is a hard thing to do, and despite its age, the channel and the tool set of the channel, it's pretty freaking hard to work with. No matter what ESPs, vendors, etc. do, it's like, God, this is convoluted and detail oriented. It's so easy to mess up, and oops, shouldn't have done that. The deliverability police are going to put you in jail and all of it. Oh God, what a tightrope.
I'm seeing a lot of that, and I follow the deliverability channel a lot, and I watch and I lurk and listen to a lot of the different things. We've been talking about personalization for 18 years.
Yeah,
I know, because I did a talk on it on personalization and just how silly it is, but that we keep talking about the same thing that we did 18 years ago, because that was an email trend like in 2006, right? Or 2004, where we were talking about personalization, and we're still talking about it today, and so somebody said to me once, it's hard to do email. It's even harder to, right. And so I think I actually put a list in one of my Evernote notes. I think I came up with 179 things that email marketers are worried about today. 179 things. So if you are the director of email or email manager or whoever, and you're responsible for that channel, there's a lot of crap you have to think about, right? And each one of those little minutiae can get you into trouble. And then, no one praises the email marketer when you're like, great job on that ROI.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, the images didn't render. Holy crap, we just sent it out to 3 million people.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Email marketer, right? Yeah. You're like, oh crap, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny, but it's not, right? Like, I hate to be
funny, but it's funny, but it's not. Well, it must be invaluable to your colleagues at iPost to have someone on the team who is talking from the roll up the sleeves, did it, help clients do it for a long time, like because those of us in the software and vendor side can really get up our own squirrel tree, building stuff that the guy using it doesn't care about at all.
Yeah.
Doesn't move the dial for him at all.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you could talk about micro-segmentation to somebody that all they want to do is, how do I get an email out the door that doesn't take 5 weeks? And how do I build it? And how do I report on it? How do I do it? And that's okay, right? To the advanced email marketers that want to do multivariate testing across a whole bunch of different things, and they want to learn, but there's such a broad range that we deal with. Even when I was at Trendline and now at iPost, there's these hugely advanced marketers that are doing some really amazing just off the moon, off the charts from a personalization and a segmentation. And it's working for them, to the person that all they want to do is do it right, do it sound, and make sure that that person at the other end feels as if they're special. And that's why I think it's fun. I talk to customers every day. And I hear it. I hear so many different things. Like, I have to put on this hat, and then I have to put on this hat, and it's fun. It's fun.
Nice. Hey, got back to the slightly personal side for a sec. You said you're now in the empty nest business.
Yeah. So I've got a 20-year-old college sophomore who's looking for a marketing internship. He actually had me sign up for one of his email programs, but yeah. So I'm an empty nester, wife of 25 years, downsized my house. It doesn't get any better.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Fellow empty nester. It's a weird transition.
It is.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
like, I miss having rock bands, rehearsing in the house. I actually really, really do.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It does. It's not that fun when it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and they don't have to get up the next day, but
Yes.
you actually do.
Yeah. Fair
Or when
point.
they're screaming in the basement playing video games and having a good time. And it's great, but I look forward to when he comes back from college to hear about a lot of different things. But the time went by so fast, right? And it's just, he remembers the days when I first started my co-founded my agency, the work ethic. And I think it's great when you see a kid like my son have a work ethic. But he's learned a lot about email. I'll tell you that, right? He's got an appreciation for it. Now, maybe because of dad. I'm not
Maybe,
sure.
yeah, maybe just a bit of an influence there. I do think, and I'm saying this from my own experience, having
Yeah.
worked out of a home office for 2 decades,
Mm-hmm.
um, I do think one of the sort of funny side effects of pandemic, work from home shift, and all that other stuff
Mm-hmm.
is we'll get back to some firsthand modeling that was getting lost at the office. My sons saw me get my butt down to the office every day, right?
Right.
And like they knew where the office. They also knew that I'd love to have them come down and say hi, but really
Mhm.
don't stick around because I'm working. And I don't think
So,
that's a bad thing to see
yeah.
firsthand instead of, oh, well, they're gone. She or he is,
Yeah.
they're gone. They're off doing something
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
like, okay, maybe there's some good side effects there. Never
Yeah.
liked commuting in the first place, but leaving that one aside, that's easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember the days when I had an office and he used to come in and play Minecraft when he was in like third grade, right?
Yeah.
And take down our internet or slow everything
Yeah.
down. And, and now he knows when dad's on the phone or if he's here back from school and stuff. I think that generation, right? The people that are in college now or just shortly that graduated or whatever, I think it's going to be really interesting to see and take the test. Are they going to want to go into an office? Hybrid, part-time. My wife just told me about a study that overwhelmingly a lot of the younger generation today want the flexibility to go in. Whereas gray hairs like me, right? I could take it or leave it.
Yeah.
We're fully remote and I love it.
Well, we had our back to the guild thing. We had our opportunities to apprentice. It doesn't mean that there's not new stuff to learn, but
Mhm.
I learned how to work and get along and carry my piece of the load and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. And I would be concerned uh, to see too big a span of years where there's not firsthand. Why is my phone going nuts? Would you stop going? Sorry.
Maybe it's an email emergency.
Yeah, no. But no, I hope they get that firsthand opportunity and get to work with a range of people because you never can tell who's going to teach you the most valuable lesson you got to learn, and you may not
Absolutely.
realize it till years later.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Interesting.
Uh,
I think the same. I extend the analogy to education and then back again. Like
mhm.
my last one out of college took a gap year height of COVID because he said this isn't the experience that
Mhm.
that I want to finish on. And great decision, right? But he was right,
Totally. Right.
right?
Totally.
Yeah, all the
Totally.
motivation and all socialization that makes a lesson stick or
Yeah.
makes you want to work extra hard on a paper or whatever the heck that is,
Yeah.
very firsthand.
And my son was a freshman in college during the COVID height. And so he didn't go on campus. And I kind of felt like he coasted through that year. He did really well, but hardly anybody was on campus. So there was that bit of a gap. And now that he's been on this campus for the year that he's been on,
Yeah.
it's a whole new level, right? For him. And he's getting that college, that experience of dealing with people as opposed to just a Zoom. But like,
Yeah. 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 That's no substitute for that one. Really isn't.
yeah, they're really, and it's a great thing, but it's great when he calls or when he sends me a text, he's like, "Hey dad, go here and sign up." I sign up, brother. You know, like I saw you never asked.
Oh, it's
You
awesome.
never asked. You know, so he knows it, right? He knows it.
That's awesome. Hey, last question before I start
Yeah.
tying up your day. Are you going to yourself live to any conferences or industry events?
You know, not right now. Actually, I'm speaking. Actually, I'm speaking in November at Guru, but I'm not going right now, actively going out just yet. Part of it is I think that I always kind of have this love-hate relationship with conferences and events, you know, and they're fun to see, they're fun to take part in. Certainly, iPost will have a presence at them, but again, we're niche. We just came back from the NIGA, which was the National Indian Gaming Association in Anaheim. Right. Since we're into the casino areas, we had a presence at the Indian gaming show, which was amazing. Right. And we went to G2E last year. So I guess I'm going to change my answer. Yes, but very sparingly. Right. Very sparingly.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm first one in a couple years, June for me. And I am looking forward to it in terms of seeing friends and colleagues.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's really the motive.
I hear you. Because you know what? The best conversations are never at the conference.
No.
At night,
Yeah.
after the conference, everyone's had a few cocktails, and then everyone starts to banter back and forth.
Yeah.
It's great. Some of the best conversations I've ever had have been outside that conference.
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, Andrew, I so appreciate you making the time and us getting a chance to connect and converse a little bit, at least in public.
For sure. It's been my pleasure. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I truly appreciate it. And we'll definitely keep soldiering on. This is a great industry.
Keep soldiering on. Well, my guest has been Andrew Kordek, Vice President of Customer Engagement at iPost. If you're curious about iPost, go visit iPost.com. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.